Hey guys, I'm just about at the point where I can try firing this setup for the first time. I finished testing all the tubes. About half were good and I left them in the set. Some of the others were only fair and I found replacements. And two of them were substitutes. They were not the same tube type as shown on the tube placement chart. The chart calls for a 12D4 for the damper tube. I found a 12AX4. I looked it up and that is a valid substitution. I did, however, find a better new old stock 12AX4 and installed it. I just don't have any 12D4s on hand. And the other one was a 12CU5 in place of a 12 CA5. Now, I don't have any 12 CA5s. I looked everywhere through all my tube caddies and boxes of pull tubes and so on. I just couldn't find any. I also looked up a 12 CU5 and it is close. They have the same pinout. They're both audio output tubes. Here it is on the schematic. And they have the same filament rating, 12.6 volts, 600 milliamps. However, 12 CA5 has a higher output impedance, a higher plate resistance, and it's not as doesn't have as high a wattage output. So this has a lower plate resistance, and it can put out more power, which probably is okay in terms of me at least testing out the sets, but eventually I do want to track down the right tube. This might be putting a little bit too much of a load on that circuit. Alright, so I've got all the tubes in place, and if you recall, my plan was to power up without the picture tube attached. But in order to do that, I need to jump these two pins, because that's where the CRT filament would go. I found those two pins. They are these two. And in there, I stuck a couple pins I salvaged from some tube bases. Whenever I need to make up a custom plug or repair the base of a tube, I scavenge them off of bad tubes. So when I've got some bad tubes, I just whack the envelope and I save the bases so I can scavenge pins off of them. Now I wouldn't bust up something like a 4-pin tube base like this because they're a little scarce. But I got plenty of bad octal tubes, so I think that's where those came from. Alright, so if I jump these two and turn the set on and check the resistance on the AC plug, should have a few hundred ohms. So let's try that out. Eventually I'll put a 10 ohm resistor on here to simulate the CRT filament. For now, I'm just going to short it out. Alright, now this has a push-pull on-off switch, so I don't really know which position is on and which is off, but I can certainly try pushing it and see what happens. Well, that's not a good sign. Alright, let's check underneath. So here's the power connector. Now one side should be going directly to the chassis. This is a hot chassis set. See it right here in a schematic. One side is just going directly to ground. So I'm not sure which side is because it's an unpolarized plug. Well, let's see. I'll clip one side on the chassis. Okay, so this side, the right hand pin, is going directly to the chassis. So it's the other side that's switched. Here's that switch. And this must be one of the wires going to it. I can see it snaking all around over to the power switch. And this is probably the other wire coming off of it. And I can see it goes right to the CL90 thermistor. So if I clip this here, power switch again. Okay. Some pretty wonky readings there. So there it's, I presume, off, infinite resistance. But when I do it again, well, I keep my finger pushed in, it goes down to about 0 ohms. But when I let go, it's still kind of low. The values are jumping around before now. The switch is probably just dirty, so it hasn't been turned on in forever. Also, whatever happened that fried all the parts in this set may have caused a little damage to the switch. So I'm just going to keep working it. Worst case scenario, I'm going to have to do a little surgery on it. For now, I can just jump out that switch and use a switch on like my Variac. But it's touchy. Jumping all over, but if I just touch the end of the power switch, put a little pressure on the shaft, I get the values to jump all over. Alright. I knew this set was going to be a pain to get running. Alright, I'll see if I can spray any deoxit or anything in there. Keep working at it and see if I can get it to work reliably. If not, I'm just going to jumper it. I can always use the switch on my power strip or Variac to turn this set off and on for now. I soldered a little jumper wire across the power switch. So let's see what difference that makes. So going right back to the AC plug. Still measuring open. Alright, let's go back to right here, which should be right after the power switch. Oh, that must be the other side of the thermistor, so let's see. This must be right after the power switch. Okay, so essentially 0 ohms. Other side of the thermistor, which has about a 120 ohm cold resistance. We've got about 120 ohms. Alright, cool. So here's where we're at. And next I'll check on those power resistors. 1, 2, 3. So if I go over here, that should be... Alright, so we're down to here. First tube up is V11. So after the damper tube, the filament string goes through these tubes. And if I check here, see we've got continuity. Goes through a second inductor here, and it comes out on this brown wire here that goes to the other board. If I check here, see we have continuity through those tubes as well. And then it goes through this tube, and this tube, and this tube. I check those are all good, and then we get here. And this is where we've got a problem. We do have continuity coming through over to this socket. And then the filament juice comes out on the adjacent pin here and goes over to this guy. Now, if I pop this tube back in, so it goes from pin 4 on this socket to pin 4 on this socket. 2, 3, 4. And we have a problem. However, if I wiggle this tube around a bit, see, hey, we have continuity, and no, we don't. I examined the socket more closely, and I found the problem alright. Kills me because this is a known problem. I knew to look for this, and somehow I just missed it. That is broken loose. This is a known failure point with these sockets where this piece of metal bends down and where the pin goes in. And I've got a replacement right here. But the only way I can install it is to take the socket, or take the whole board back out, take all the pins off. And, man. I can try globbing some solder in there, I suppose, and try to repair it. But I suppose I should pop all the other tubes out and check those sockets more closely. And I may have another break somewhere in the tuner sockets, and maybe that's why that's not making. I don't have continuity going through that as well. Well, you live and learn. As best I could, I applied a little bit of solder to that pin 5 down there. It seems to be holding up for now. So, if I check continuity over to this point, we're good. 170 ohms. So that's the resistance of the thermistor plus all the various tube filaments. 170 ohms seems about right. If I wiggle this tube, we're not losing continuity. So I don't expect that solder joint to hold up forever under the stress and strain of this heating and cooling over, you know, weeks and months of operation. But for now, it'll hold. If there are some other issues that pop up on this board, who knows, I may end up disconnecting these wires and popping the board out and replacing that socket. But for now, it'll do. So now we're somewhere between here and these two tubes and the other side of the AC outlet we've got a break. So I'll track that down now. Alright, it turns out that the continuity problem to the tuner was just this tube not being seated fully. So I do have continuity through to the AC outlet. So I'm going to try powering this up finally. So I'm plugging in my cheater cord. I'm plug it into my isolation transformer and into my variac, which I'm just going to put right up to full line voltage, about 120 volts. Because I've basically replaced everything, so I don't really need to do a slow start. Here is my resistor simulating the picture tube filament. Couldn't dig up a 10 ohm resistor, so I went with a 15 ohm. That should be fine. So again, the fusible resistor is out. Got the rectifier tube out too, because that's powered from the flyback. So really all I'm looking for is every tube and the pilot light should light up. That's it. So here it goes, and I plug in an isolation transformer and turning it on. The pilot light certainly lit up, brighter than I was expecting. And hey, all the tubes are lighting up. Alright. Progress. Of course, basically, if one tube lights up, they all have to be lighting up because they're all wired in series, so everything looks to be just fine. Wiggling. Oh, see? There's that tube with the bad socket. I just wiggled it a little bit and you saw everything go out. Just went out again, so yeah, that is going to be a problem. I can also smell some heat and can feel the heat emanating already from where all those power resistors are for the filament droppers. That guy's getting pretty toasty too. Tubes aren't really hot though. Oh, by the way, I did crunch the numbers, and if it wasn't for the pilot light, if it was just those, if that was just one big resistor there, It could be replaced with a 22 microfarad non-polarized cap. Also found out that the reason that it's multi-tap, let's see here, schematic. The reason it's got that second tap is for the optional UHF tuner. That's where the UHF pilot light would be. So really this could just be the 17 and the 8 ohm resistor could be combined if you don't have the UHF option. None of my sets have the UHF option. And if it wasn't for this pilot light, this could just be one resistor. And that whole thing could be eliminated with a 22 microfarad cap, which would cut out all this heat that's being pumped out right now, which is, I don't know, something like 10 or 15 watts, I believe. Alright, I think what my next step will be to install that fusible resistor and get a meter on the B plus supply. This time I will do a slow variac power up in case there's some short out somewhere. And I'll leave the plate cap off the horizontal output tube. Should dig out the speaker too. As soon as I get up to full B plus, even without the yoke and the picture tube attached, we should be able to get some sound. Here's the cabinet and picture tube for this set. Speaker's kind of hard to get at, so I think I'll leave it in here for now and just go with a test speaker I've got on my workbench. And as for the picture tube, I was looking in the service notes, and I think all I have to do is take out that Phillips screw, and then I can pull this entire unit off, which will pull out these two cables, and those plug into the chassis. And here's the wire for the high voltage lead. Really for now though, I just want the speaker so I can try powering the set up and see if the B plus and all comes up properly. I'm back at the workbench now. I've got a temporary speaker hooked up. I've installed the fusible resistor. I've got my voltmeter hooked up to the highest potential point. It's a diode right after the doubler there. It should be 290 volts. And I got my variac turned all the way down. So, here goes. Turn it on. Let's start turning up. 13 volts, 15. So, I'm up to 32 volts. Now, obviously, nothing's a dead short, otherwise, that voltage would be zero, and so they'd probably be smoking by now. Keep going, keep going. No, the reason I'm using my variac is that it's got a fuse in it. Let's see, I'll take these lights off. Not enough juice to get the tubes glowing yet. I'm at about 40% full power. 50%. 200 volts DC. 220. I'm not seeing any tubes light up, so I think we lost some continuity somewhere. See if I can figure that out. Try this again. Not surprisingly, the problem was this damn tube over here. I'm really going to have to replace that socket. Just get it back in. Let's try this again. Pilot light's glowing now. Good. Almost at full power. Smelly smoke. B plus is holding steady. And there we are, 290. Tubes are lit up. Hopefully we'll hear a crackle out of the speaker at some point. Yes. Turn the volume. Nice little hum there. Let's see if I can figure out where I put the channel and fine-tuning knobs, and maybe, just maybe, if I put this on channel 6, we'll actually hear something. Okay, here's the knobs. Well, I guess that would have been too much to ask for, but certainly promising. B plus has been dropping a little bit, but it's not too surprising, I guess, as the set's been warming up. Turn up the Variac a little bit more to keep it up to 290. I don't have an antenna hooked up either, so I'll just touch the antenna terminal, see if that makes any difference. This is channel 6, I'm pretty sure. Hey!
Free ring with this LG Optimus Elite Limited. This incredible handset for just $9.99, exclusively at radio. For more information and find the nearest Radio Shack, visit Virgin.
I got the volume cranked all the way up, so it's not exactly impressive.
35 beyond top plane includes 3.
Well, I see it makes a huge difference where I stand. So I gotta kind of...
Other restrictions apply.
I stand over here, it's great. I move 1 foot to the left and it's completely gone. Seems a little odd. Trey's in a piece of wire.
Contact helps you to cross that barrier.
I guess the wire makes a better antenna than I do.
From email to events, local deals to social media promotions. Learn which product is.
I'm not so sure it's channel 6 though, because channel 6 plays music. I thought kind of exclusively.
If I have my way, we'll go somewhere warm.
For paying off your mortgage sooner.
So I'll listen for a bit and see if I can figure out what this actually is. I got the fine tuning all the way when extreme, it's on channel 6. So this might actually be another station on the FM band. This channel 6 kind of runs up into the FM band. Well, the tuner seems pretty dirty.
Junkies, and a few of you will hang with them backstage before the show. Go to q877.com for
yeah, this is channel 6, alright.
It made my week.
Is an expression we've all used when we've had a good meeting or a good meal, or when you win that game of force against that neighbor who played in college. Well, now you can make your week every week for the next 20 years. Just play 20 for 20.
Alright, I guess next I'll see if I can work that picture tube loose and get that up here on the workbench. And hey, who knows, maybe I can actually get a picture going.